getting to the stage of my life where I feel like, you remember the old cuckoo clocks on your grandma's wall, and then it would go bong, 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 and these little figures would come out and walk around. And I feel like my life is getting to be like one of those cuckoo clocks. It's as if there's a pattern. And right now, here I am in this part of the pattern, the part where I get to talk to you folks for a little while. And I'd like you to know that I'm very grateful that you are good listeners. Because sometimes when you talk, people are going, oh, I wish that you weren't talking. But I'm glad to be here to share a few thoughts with you. And in the church, when we share thoughts, it's always good if they are rooted in our lived experience. Not just our lived experience, but our lived experience in light of God's Word. So when we share with one another the experience of our lives, these are the two elements that matter. Now, as a young person, I was not that keen on church. By about the age of 13, I could see pretty much through what I call the ritual of religion and the practice of life. And it seemed to me as a young person that there was a disconnect between what was being said in church and what was being done in the lives that my family and friends were living. So I was a bit, what I would call, pessimistic about the Word of God. I was pessimistic about the Christian religion. And that set me on a journey because I thought, well, if I can't trust this stuff, I need to look for something that I can trust. And that looking, that searching, that journey took me a good long while. It basically came to its end at the age of 30. Now, at the age of 30, I didn't change from pessimism to optimism. You know that pessimism is when you just feel totally discouraged about everything. You just believe that nothing is going to go the way you would like it to go. Things are terrible. Optimism is, well, I guess everything's going to turn out okay. I guess things are going to be just fine. I changed from pessimism, not to optimism, but from pessimism to hope. And I've heard it said that the difference between hope and optimism is in optimism, it's basically wishful thinking. Hope animates you for action so that the thing you hope for, you work for. Hope is a motivator for change. Now in the song, there's a pattern, and it's a pattern that expresses gratitude to God for goodness. Then it expresses a little bit of remorse about the loss of goodness, and then it celebrates the return of goodness in an amplified way. And when I was reading the psalm this week, I thought about the man that we all know. His name was Job. And Job was somebody who had a very good life. He had everything that you could want as a human being. And then it got taken away from him. And he cried out to God, why is this happening to me? And then over time, Job was tested. His faith was tested. But he clung to his trust in God. And in the end, this produced an outcome which made him even better than he had been before. And that better, in my opinion, is related to the fact he had been put to the test, he had survived the test, and he had realized that no matter what the circumstance, God is faithful. God can be trusted. Now the two texts from the New Testament, the text about Jesus and the text about Paul, are texts that originate in a time when the world was going through great changes. And Jesus was a part of that change. Jesus was going about to people who were discouraged by the way things were going. He was going about and lifting them up in their spirits. He often helped change the circumstances of their life. He made a positive difference. Jesus, on the text today, is with his disciples after his resurrection. They now know that everything he had been talking to them about, everything he had been doing with them, they now knew that it was the revealed will of God. They knew that Jesus could be trusted as a teacher, as a leader, as a supporter, as an encourager. But the text has Jesus with the disciples, and he wants to sum up his lesson to them. And they are on the shore, and they get into a boat, and they go to fish, and they catch nothing. Jesus is on the shore watching this happening, and he says to them, "Why don't you try fishing on the other side of the boat?" And I hope you don't mind, but I use the word other rather than the right side of the boat. Because in Christianity today, the right side of things is getting a bit extreme, a bit hard to bear. But what Jesus taught the people was, you've been doing it this way your whole life. Try doing it this way. Jesus invited the people to change the way they looked at the world and change the way in which they responded to the world. Now, Jesus, as we know, was not well liked by some persons for this message of change that he was promoting. Some people didn't want the change that Jesus was advocating. They wanted to silence him. They wanted things to stay exactly as they had been, exactly as they were. They wanted status quo. They did not want things to be different. And Paul was one of the chief persons in this resistance to the change that Jesus was bringing into the world. The change which was basically the expression of God's love for all people. Not just religious people who performed certain ceremonies, who did certain rituals, but for all people, God gave love freely. Saul was angry, and he was going about persecuting these followers of Jesus. He was arresting them. He was having them thrown in jail. He was having them beaten, and sometimes, as the text said, he was having them killed. Paul was the opposite of Jesus. Everything Jesus wanted to set up, Paul wanted to tear down. Until one day, when Paul had an experience with Jesus, the resurrected Christ, and the light came on for Paul. He realized that he had been in the dark for his whole life. Now, it took a while. Paul went to a room where he waited. He had been blinded by the light. Ananias, a fellow, came after 3 days, which is an interesting connection with 3 days in the grave for Jesus, 3 days of blindness for Paul. Ananias prayed and baptized Paul, and Paul became a new human being. Paul gave up all the old ways, and he embraced teaching of Jesus. He embraced the example of Jesus, the love of Jesus, and he dedicated himself to spreading that love throughout the world. Now, these texts are about change in history. We now live in a time where we're wondering, is it time for things to change? And in a particular way, we in the United Church of Canada are asking questions about what that change will look like. And I am sure that we here at Gordon King Memorial are also wondering what the future looks like. How will it be? And what I would encourage you to do is to embrace the Spirit of Jesus, which is the Spirit of change. The spirit of looking at things and doing them in new ways. And I would encourage you to be like Paul, to take the revelation of Jesus, and express it in and through all of your relationships. The United Church of Canada, of which we are a part, has a great opportunity just now to show the world an example of what it means to embrace the future and let go of the past. So I want to encourage you as we go into our meeting today to be a person open to newness, open to the exciting possibility that we here as a small community might become an example to other persons in other United Church communities, that we might be an example to them. That we do everything we can to respect the rules and regulations, but we work with all of our energy to be creative and courageous and trying new things. The gospel says, "Behold, I make all things new." Let's ask God to change our world, and let's ask God to begin that process of change by changing our heart, by changing our mind. And I trust that asking this of God, God will answer. Waverly is suggesting I say amen.